What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, and in this video, I'm going to be going through my Week 18 wide receiver start sits. So if you guys have a Week 18 fantasy championship, hopefully this video can help you all set your lineup. If you are new to the channel, the way I structure these videos is I go through every single matchup. So I'll be talking about all 16 games, and then I list every fantasy relevant wide receiver as either a start, fringe option, or a sit. The starts are players you feel pretty confident with in your lineup on a week-to-week basis. The fringe options, these are more of your wide receiver threes, your flex plays, and then sits. These are obviously players who are on your bench. And I talked about this in my running back video. Doing start sits for week 18 is very tough, especially early on in the week, because there's all these different scenarios where certain teams have clinched, certain teams are going to be scoreboard watching. Maybe their stars, their starters play a half, maybe they play a quarter, maybe they play 3 quarters. They may not be logging full games. So there's a lot of things to kind of bake in here, which is obviously why most leagues end in week 17. But I will also be responding to all comments, and you guys can leave new comments throughout the week, like Thursday, Friday. I'll make sure to keep answering them as we get more information, and try to help you guys make the best decisions possible. But let's jump into the Chiefs Raiders matchup. And for the Chiefs, there's kind of been, one top wide receiver in that room all year long, and it's been Juju. He's had a few disappointing weeks in a row. It's kind of an offense where, they're not relying on one Tyreek Hill. We saw some massive games out of Juju, but they've opted to kind of spread the ball around as of late. So he's going to be a fringe play for me, probably like a high-end wide receiver three. It's possible that with other teams, potentially sitting their stars, he could end up being like a top 24 guy for me. But right now, he's going to be a fringe play. For the Raiders, even though they're not playing for anything, we saw them really ball out with Jarrett Stidham. I imagine they're just kind of going to go with the same approach. So obviously we fire up Devontae Adams as a start, and then sitting Mac Hollins and Hunter Renfrow. Then looking at this Titans-Jaguars game, for the Titans, I actually have Treylon Burks as a fringe option. I thought he was kind of doomed rest of season with Malik Willis taking over, but it looks like they're going to roll with Josh Dobbs, which is great news for Burks, more of a pocket passer who can actually support Burks. So he'll be a wide receiver three for me, sitting Robert Woods. Then for the Jaguars, this is obviously a must-win game for both of these teams. I think there's some scenario where they could slide in as the wild card, but this is the game that guarantees them the division. So for the Jaguars, I think they're going to be rolling with the starters all the way through. I think Christian Kirk is a start. It's kind of cooled off as of late, but still has had some solid performances. Just hasn't really found the end zone. Zay Jones, I think he's a high-end wide receiver three. Also a great matchup here against the Titans. And then sitting Marvin Jones. Now moving over to the Buccaneers Falcons. For the Buccaneers here, they pretty much have nothing to gain from playing in this game in terms of wins or loss. They've locked up the division. It's not like they can jump up to the 3 seed or the 2 seed. They're locked in at number 4. The only reason they may want to play their starters, at least for a little bit in this matchup, would be to just kind of keep the momentum rolling. This is an offense that has not been in sync all season long. They really had a big day week 17. Maybe they just want, a quarter more of reps, a half more playing, but I really can't see these guys, playing in the third, fourth quarter. So I just can't bank on a half, at most of these guys playing. So I'm just going to be sitting all these dudes, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. On the other side for the Falcons, right now I have Drake London as a fringe option, probably like a high-end wide receiver three. I will say that if later on in the week we're hearing the Bucs are also sitting players, talking like Jamel Dean, Carlton Davis, Antoine Winfield. If they're sitting the top options in their secondary, I think Drake London could definitely jump up to be a more solid start. Then we have the Patriots taking on the Bills. Likely going to be an important game for both of these teams. We'll see what happens with that Bills-Bengals situation, when that game gets played. But right now, the Patriots need to win this game. Bills will likely need to win, to keep that number 1 seed, or we'll see how it plays out after that Bengals game. But for the Patriots here, I have Jacoby Myers as a fringe option. He went on a cold stretch, has had back-to-back strong performances. Not a great matchup here against the Bills, but I do think he's a fine wide receiver three. And then sitting Tyquan Thornton for the Bills. Obviously, things could happen in that Bengals game, but going to stick with Stephon Diggs as a start. And then sitting Gabriel Davis, who just has not been consistent and really hasn't had that many boom games to kind of justify the boomer bust nature. Then looking at this Vikings Bears game, I think it's very possible the Vikings sit their starters. It seems like that is what they're leaning towards. So I have Jefferson and Thielen as sits. I do think KJ Osborne will probably play in this game and will be operating as their wide receiver one. We saw him kind of get the garbage time opportunities against the Packers He ended up scoring a touchdown. So as their wide receiver 1, potentially, obviously this could change, but I do think he has some value as a wide receiver 3. And then for the Bears, just a despicable wide receiver room. Don't even have anyone listed here. It's brutal out there for Mr. Justin Fields. Looking at the Ravens taking on the Bengals. For the Ravens, just not interested in anyone at this wide receiver room, even if Lamar returns. Going to be sitting Demarcus Robinson, I guess, as their number 1. And then for the Bengals here, this is a game they're probably going to need to win. Starting Jamar Chase, starting T. Higgins, sitting Tyler Boyd. Maybe he could qualify as a fringe option if we do see a lot of these other guys, kind of dropping off and not playing. But right now, he's going to be a sit for me. Then looking at the Lions-Packers matchup, this is a big game for both of these teams. For the Lions, firing up Amon-Ra, and then I like DJ Chark as a fringe option, wide receiver 3. Then for the Packers, I have Christian Watson as a start. He is coming off of a down game, but I like this matchup here against that Lions secondary. I think he could break a big one or two and have one of those ceiling games. And then I like Allen Lazard as a fringe option. Looking at the Texans taking on the Colts, not a ton going on here in the wide receiver department. For the Texans, typically just trying to avoid this wide receiver room. Brandon Cooks is going to be a sit for me. And then for the Colts, I have Michael Pittman as a fringe option. I think he's a high-end wide receiver 3. Quarterback situation, obviously not ideal. I believe they're going to be rolling with Sam Ehlinger with Nick Foles banged up. But just a spot where, you could throw him in there. You don't love him, but, a very serviceable wide receiver 3 flex option. Then in this Jets-Dolphins matchup, we have some stud wide receivers dealing with some unfortunate quarterback situations. For the Jets, Mike White returned, did not play a solid game. I believe Wilson saw 11 targets, only had 3 receptions. I'm willing to fire him back up as a start, probably more of a wide receiver 2, whereas heading into it, I liked him as like I think I had him as a top 12 guy. Didn't really pan out. On the other side for the Dolphins, continuing to fire up Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, even though it looks like we're definitely not going to be seeing Tua. Moving over to the Panthers, taking on the Saints. I like DJ Moore here as a start. He's had some big games with Sam Darnold, plus just with some of the other wide receivers being in weird situations. I think he's definitely a guy you can trust in your lineup. For the Saints, firing up Chris Olave. Didn't do anything crazy in his first game back, but I like that he's returning. I think they'll, play him a decent amount. And then sitting Rashid Shaheed, even though he's had some, solid performances. If you're in a super deep league and you're in a pinch, I don't think Shaheed's a terrible play. I would just rather roll with Chris Olave. Looking at the Giants taking on the Eagles, this Giants team is kind of a tough one to look at here because we've seen Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins have some really strong performances, but I think the Giants are probably just going to pack this one in. I don't think this game has any effect on them moving up or down. I think they're locked into, I think it's like the 6th seed, so they'll probably sit Saquon. They'll probably sit Daniel Jones. They may still play Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins because it's not exactly like, dealing with top 10 wide receivers, top 20 wide receivers. But this is probably a spot where this Eagles defense is probably going to lock them down. So I'd avoid starting these guys. If they, for some reason, are rolling with Daniel Jones, maybe these guys come into play. On the other side for the Eagles, this is a game they need to win. So fire up A.J. Brown, fire up Devonta Smith, really regardless of who's playing quarterback. Then we have the Browns taking on the Steelers. Saw Amari Cooper have a big day. I like him as a start. And then sitting Donovan Peoples-Jones. Watson really just hasn't shown the ability to support both of these guys. And then it's kind of a tough matchup here against the Steelers, who have been really tough over the last few weeks against opposing wide receivers. So I would prefer to sit DPJ. For the Steelers, just, Deontay, he has the volume, hasn't put it together, no touchdowns. George Pickens, same thing, has a few big plays here or there. Not guys I want to be relying on in my fantasy championships. Then we have the Cowboys taking on the Commanders. For the Cowboys, obviously fire CeeDee Lamb up as a mid to high end wide receiver 1. And then for the Commanders here, not really sure what's going on in that quarterback room. They switch back to Carson Wentz. It totally blows up in their face. Do they, continue with Wentz? Do they go to Heineke? Does Sam Howell see the field? I think they're eliminated. Could be wrong on that one. Not really sure. But the one staple that you do want to have in your lineup, regardless of who's playing quarterback, that would be Terry McLaurin. I'd say if they go back to Heineke, you probably have Dotson as like a fringe option. Wentz, probably just stick with Terry. So that's what we're looking at right now. In the Chargers-Broncos matchup, assuming the Chargers are going for the win here, fire up Keenan Allen, fire up Mike Williams. And then for the Broncos, I like Jerry Jeudy as a start, sitting Cortland Sutton. Judy's had some solid games and seeing the volume from Russ. Then we have the Rams taking on the Seahawks. For the Rams, just nothing really going on here at wide receiver. Sitting Van Jefferson, sitting Tutu Atwell. And then for the Seahawks, both DK and Lockett coming off of down games. I still think both of these guys should be locks in your lineup. So, they're definitely going to be starts for me. Then we're looking at the Cardinals taking on the 49ers. Last game I'm talking about here. For the Cardinals, I personally think DeAndre Hopkins probably isn't going to play in this one. If he misses week 17, why are you going to bring him back for a week 18 game that doesn't matter? However, if he's active and he's playing, I think you got to fire him up. Going to be sitting Marquise Brown. And then for the 49ers, we may get Debo back. If Debo's back, I'm playing him. If Debo's back, I'm still firing up Brandon Ayuk as a very strong start. So that's going to be every single week 18 matchup. Hopefully this video helps you guys out. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of information coming out throughout the week. Some decisions may get kind of switched up here. So if you guys do have questions, you can ask them throughout the week. I will make sure to get back to you. But thank you for stopping by, and I will see you all in the next one.